Hello, Mr. Miller here, back with the third instructional video for debate judges for October 26, 2019. This explains a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of a particular argument now that you're a policy maker and you're looking for stuff. So here's the order. The affirmative team gets up and they get 8 minutes to talk about why these horrible things are happening and why we should stop selling weapons to this country or stop selling a particular weapon. And then the negative team has 3 minutes to get up and ask them questions about this. And that could be really kind of interesting at points in time. And then the negative gets up and they introduce, if they have a topicality attack, they'll say, hey, they're not on topic because they're too small. Or, hey, they're not on topic because they're trying to sell machetes instead of actual weapons. And they'll also present probably their disadvantages. You know, these bad things are going to happen if we do this. And then you got another CX in which the affirmative team then gets to ask the negative about their attack. So after each major speech, you have this cross-examine time for clarification, so they can ask questions to make sure they understand each other and they know what the heck's going on. They also try to pick holes in the other people's arguments. So, and then the 2AC gets up and they defend or argue against what the 1NC just did, right? So this guy gets up, presents these ideas, this guy or a lady attacks this person, and then this person defends and says, hey, they are picking on us and this is what our answers are. And then you have another cross-ex to clarify, and then you have this person typically attacks more of the what we call on-case solvency attacks. You know, their plan won't fix the problem. There's no solvency, and they also directly attack the advantages. You know, these advantages aren't going to happen. One common attack on advantages is they'll say they're too big. You know, people will say, we're going to do a little bit and then we're going to solve. Years and years ago, when global warming first came onto the world stage, affirmative teams were getting up and arguing, hey, we're going to cut car emissions by 50% in the United States, and that's going to solve global warming. And it's like, really? You're going to do this and you're claiming this. How can you claim something huge if you're only doing a tiny thing? And that's a very common attack for this person right here to make is, okay, they are claiming these huge advantages, world peace. We're going to have world peace if we stop selling weapons to one country. Yeah, I don't think so. And that's a pretty common, because these people the affirmative team tends to want to exaggerate their advantages, and the negative team tends to want to exaggerate their disadvantages. And that's why I said earlier is that you want tight arguments, and this exaggeration stuff is for the birds as far as I'm concerned. Then you got cross-ex, and then you go into rebuttals. I don't see you hold this thing. You got, after all the cross-ex, so the debate's practically in two parts. You got the 8-minute long speeches with the 3-minute long cross-examinations, and then you go into rebuttals, and each kid gets 5 minutes to talk, okay? And generally what you're trying to see in rebuttals is more of a development of the arguments instead of just repeating themselves. Beginners oftentimes will just simply repeat what they said earlier, which gets really old. They need to develop further, explain further why their argument's better than the other team's argument. So a really good team will further develop, go into more in-depth detail in the rebuttals. So anyway, that's the nutshell of it. Back, forth, back, forth. The kids keep track of their own time. We may have a timekeeper or two in the rounds, but generally no. The kids are used to keeping track of each other. They have timers. And that's pretty much the layout, back and forth, back and forth. You really want to take notes, okay? You really want to take notes because they're going to be presenting a lot of arguments here. And if you're not taking notes, kids will have a tendency to change their story. Especially this guy at the end, the 2AR, because there's nobody talking after him. And so if you're not there taking notes, they'll get up and just say, wow, really? Where'd that come from? And it's really irritating if you're the negative team to have a judge who's not taking notes and they go, oh yeah, the 2AR answered everything. No, they just lied. So I'm going to end on that note. Take notes. Please take notes. Write down what they're saying. And here's another thing. If they go for speed, I'm going to be telling the kids who are debating not to talk fast. They should present logical, coherent arguments to you that are based on evidence. There's something called the burden of proof. The affirmative team has it. They have to prove with evidence. The negative team, not necessarily so, because they're negative. They're just trying to show a little. But the negative team really ought to have evidence too. But these kids they can't just come out and make a statement and then have no evidence. They need evidence. Unless it's just pure logic, like, the moon argument. There's this moon argument in which you say, if we send cows to the moon, they'll die because they don't have oxygen. And then I get up and argue, well, if you send chickens to the moon, they'll die because there's no oxygen. And the team says, well, do you have proof that chickens will die too? And I'll get, no, but I got the proof that the cows will. Well, and then the other team says, well, that's not good enough. Your evidence says cows, it needs to say chickens. Well, they're both breathe, right? So that's good enough. The logic there would make the chicken argument valid. So even though I don't have evidence that says my chickens will die, just the sheer fact that an animal will die because of lack of oxygen, you can make that logical next step from the cows to the chickens. So that kind of logical step is okay, but if the affirmative team gets up and makes some fantastic claim and they have no evidence, then that's not okay. So a little tidbit in there at the end. They need to have proof to prove their point. So, number one, you're a policymaker, right? Advantages, disadvantages. You're going to take notes as you go through, okay? Make sure this guy at the end doesn't lie to you, okay? They'll want to come shake your hand afterwards. You shake their hand it's okay if you want to say, look, I got a cold, you don't want to shake my hand. And they'll understand that. I've done that plenty of times before. So if you want to say that, you can. But again, thanks for judging. I hope these videos make sense to you. If they don't, please email me at millerk@rockcreekschools.org. millerk@rockcreekschools, it's all one word, lowercase, .org. Or text me. Or if you happen to know a debate student, don't be afraid to ask them. But it's the job of the students. Just keep this in mind throughout this whole process. If the students confuse you, that's their problem. That's their mistake. That's not your mistake. That's their mistake. They're supposed to be making logical arguments. If you can't understand them, vote against them. Just say, this was really confusing. I didn't understand your argument. You can do that. Okay? That's legitimate. I have no idea what you're talking about. This guy, at least I understand what he's saying. I'll vote for him. And you can do that. So, thanks again for judging. Really appreciate it. Got any questions? Please call. Bye.